welcome to episode 5 of The Black Feather, your Ospreys fan cast. So you can see there's 4 of us, and we've got a guest this afternoon, and we've got Darragh with us, who's going to be chatting everything Munster with us. Thank you very much for joining us, Darragh. And I
Thanks for
just
having
want to,
us.
oh, you're more than welcome. Always good to, us Welsh and us Irish always get on really, really well. So always good to have someone on with a bit of patter and a bit of banter. And so, guys, we are now the Black Feather podcast 2.0. We've had some changes here at Black Feather headquarters, and moving forward, Rhodri, Marc, and myself will be your main hosts. We've also made some changes with regards to when we're going to record and when episodes are going to drop. So, Wednesday will be your Black Feather Day. If they come out earlier, great, what a surprise. If not, Wednesday will be your regular day. Thank you so much for all the feedback we've had over the last 4 weeks. It's been fantastic, and it's led to us making some changes, shuffling things about a bit. And we'd just like to wish Darren all the best with his Two Ospreys endeavour. And yeah, you're just stuck with us 3 now. Can we call ourselves the 3 amigos, guys?
Three
The
Musketeers.
three-piece.
The 3 piece, the trio.
Yeah.
I prefer the 3 amigos, but you may not be old enough for that, Rod, to remember that
I get the
film,
reference. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get it?
Yeah.
If we could do the dance, we can do that on
Oh yeah.
TikTok. Um, but yeah, so keep interacting with us. We've had loads of questions again this week, which we'll get to later on in the pod, and we will be discussing that phenomenal win over the Stormers on Saturday evening. But first, let's look ahead. We don't like looking back at the start of the show. We like looking forward. So moving forward, we've got a cracker on Saturday off the back of those results on the weekend. And I'm so sorry to mention that, Darragh. We've got a cracker of a
Oh
game on
gosh.
Saturday, have we not? And I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if you're looking forward to it, Darragh, so much, but we've got a cracker. And Rod, once again, has been our man in the know. He's done our digging on Munster. So, Rod, take it away with Darragh.
Yeah, so I've got a series of questions for you, Dara, but do you want to introduce
Yeah.
yourself a bit first? Just tell us what you're about. Obviously, we know you're a Munster fan, but what's your rugby background?
Yeah, I'm young enough. I'm not going to state my age. I'm not going to embarrass anyone here. But I went to my first game when in 2011 I was only 3. It was a Interpro derby, Munster versus Leinster at Thomond Park. And I've been going since. I've missed one game in Thomond and Musgrave Park in the last 10 years. So you could say I'm pretty devoted, but yeah, I still play rugby. I still play for a club, being young and able and not having dodgy knees or elbows or anything yet. But yeah, I'm just a massive Munster fan. I go away to Galway and Dublin every year. I'm going away to Dublin the week after this, but I'll be down in Musgrave on Friday night to watch us take on the Ospreys for the second time at home this year. Obviously, the URC quarter final last year, I was at that too. But yeah, pretty much spend all my money on Munster.
Yeah, let's not dwell on that fixture for too long. Bad memories. Hopefully, we can right them this weekend. But before we get there, Zebra, talk to me.
Yeah.
What happened? Statistically, your defense was the best last season. What happened? 42-33 loss against Zebra. Talk me through it.
Yeah, I mean the meltdown that I put up on some of my social media platforms straight after the game, I kind of calmed down slightly. Still annoyed a bit by it, but we move. I just think that when your pack was as poor as Munster's was on Saturday, you're asking for trouble. And I think, I'm not going to say people aren't good enough, but it certainly felt like that on Saturday. There was too many people who were just kind of abject. They didn't really look like they cared or there was effort. I mean, John Klein, I feel sorry for the man. He's out 13 months and he's been thrown straight back into the deep end. But he can't. He's not able yet. He's not match fit. You can see it, Again, I've a lot of time for John Klein. I think he's been a great servant to Munster, but it's hard for anyone coming back from that length of an injury and being thrown straight in. But there's a couple. I just don't think we look fit enough. If it was the lack of preseason, we only had two preseason friendlies. I think Connacht looks fitter than us in Tolman's the week before. I think we got lucky in that game. And Zebre certainly looked fitter than us. They looked more expansive than us. But the other thing is, Zebre drove up through the middle of us, which is an issue in the forwards and the back centres. Now, I know Shane Daly went off early. Luke Fitzgerald came on, who's All-Ireland League player, has only ever been, it feels unfair to criticise him, but, is he URC standard? I wouldn't say so. Tom Farrell is another guy who's had question marks raised over him. I think he was a bit abject. I think he was a bit. But I can't blame the backs mostly because I just think the forward pack was so utterly outclassed that it's kind of unfair. The forwards win the game, the backs decide by how much, and that was really the case. Zebre were better up front. That's especially concerning because the only kind of recognised international in that Zebre pack is Daniele Fischetti. And obviously you're coming up against an Ospreys team on Friday night that has lots of Welsh internationals in the pack, or people who should be Welsh internationals, but that's kind of a debate for another day. I think some of those Osprey boys are regarded. But yeah, they certainly need to front up physically, and defence has been appalling. I don't know what's happened. Teams have figured it out.
What's behind that lack of fitness, you reckon, going, obviously pre-season, 2 games isn't abnormal. We only had one game against another professional team, and then we played 3 of the semi-pro regions within our sort of catchment. Is it to do with last season? Is it layover from that? Is it poor conditioning, in the island outfit or at Munster itself? What's going on?
I think it's poor conditioning because I obviously follow a lot of the social media teams, but Munster seem to go back a week or two later than everyone else, which obviously you're asking for trouble when you do that. I don't think the tour down in South Africa helped us, and the emerging Ireland tour that's going down to South Africa now, we're missing a few because of that. We have a few injuries, but it's not really an excuse when you're not fit. You're not fit. You just, as I said, Connacht look razor sharp against us, and Zebre did as well. They just looked like they could run rings around us for days. And you could see in the last 15 minutes of the game in Parma, Munster, there was nothing left in any of them. It is poor conditioning, I think. The one criticism I'd have of Rowntree's tenure is the start of the season. For his first season, we started awfully. We were kind of poor to the start of last season, and start of this season, they've already been humiliated. So they need to get that right. They can't rely on sort of peaking in March and April and going on these big runs and beating everyone. Obviously, it stopped. It happened 2 weeks too early. The run ended last year.
Yeah.
But the year before, where they kind of went away and brilliant, they beat everyone away. They can't rely on that. That's not going to happen every season. Especially when it comes to getting in the playoffs. They need to try and assure themselves in the playoffs in January and February time. I think it's also the reason we keep getting knocked out of Europe because we seem to peak once we're gone out of Europe. But Europe is such a big thing in this club. It's such a moneymaker. It's all the history with Munster, big European nights in Thomond Park. We haven't had any of them recently. They really need to stop relying on hitting the speed at the right time and just drip away. Just get wins and kind of drip away and get yourself those points instead of just having one big massive run at the end of the season where you win 10, 11 games in a row.
I feel like that's Munster to a T, really, not just on the season scale, but on a match scale as well. You often peak late in the season, but you can also pull a win out of the bag against all odds in the last sort of quarter. So it seems to be something that's inherently Munster. But yeah, like I said, last season you topped the table before going into the quarterfinals, but comparatively you only scored 65 tries compared to the Bulls' 85. So there's definitely something there about not taking those opportunities or racking up those tries potentially earlier in the season. And as I said
Yeah, I
previously,
think that
defense was best in the URC. But how do you change the attack? How do you become more clinical in the attack specifically this year?
I think the thing compared to the Bulls is I think what the Bulls are more likely to stick 60 or 70 on someone than we are, kind of comparatively over the last two. Like the Bulls are such a dangerous side, especially with the altitude. But our attack works, but it's not. We're not destroying anybody. We're not kind of leaving teams by the wayside either. And I think, yeah, they need to change. A lot of the pre-planned moves you can see, especially if Jack Crowley's not there, are way too predictable. And then you're leaving one man out on the wing, and it's just going to him, and it's a hospital pass, and they're getting hit and they're getting smashed. The other thing I'd say is towards the line, I think we try to be too forward orientated. I noticed it three times against Connacht, and two of them led to us losing the ball. Where there's three, four, five backs outside against two or three Connacht defenders, but it's just the forwards are trying to drive over and over and over. And it's just when you're losing the ball there or you're getting held up, it's 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 insanity. But I think
Mm,
those are the kind of key situations where the Bulls have done better than us and where Leinster have done better than us and where, the Stormers have done better than us in terms of if they get in that position, they score
mm,
99 times out of 100, whether it's a penalty or a try, they score. And Munster don't always score when they're up there, which is,
mm,
I think, what happened last season in the semi-final against Glasgow. We got up there, but we didn't score when we were up there. And it was the same against Connacht a lot. And it will prove costly in tight games, whether that's this weekend or whether it's, when we go down to South Africa in a couple of weeks or if it's in a big game in Europe. They need to take the chances that they're given, and they're being given chances. Teams are allowing them into the red zone. Zebre in the first half, I think we got into Zebra's red zone six times. We scored four tries, but the other two times we didn't come away with anything.
mhm,
And you can't have that. And we lost a couple of key lineouts in the first half when we could have really trapped Zebra in their own half and
mhm.
just pumped them and made them tired. So I think that's what really needs to change in terms of attack. The defense, I don't really know what the issue is, but I think it's either players not knowing their role because there's a couple of new players in there. Obviously, centre partnership was Tom Farrell's second game and Luke Fitzgerald's first game for Munster. Takir Abrams was a new signing, but it's not good enough. You can't get driven through the middle of, especially against Zebre, no disrespect, but we're playing a better team on Friday night. The Ospreys are playing a better team then against Leinster, and then we have to go down to South Africa. If we let those four teams run through the middle of us, you're not going to get anything out of those four games either.
Yeah, and we've got some exciting prospects in the midfield this year, a bit more depth than we're used to. So we've got that adaptability in selecting players specifically for the opponent that we're facing. So yeah, it'll be a good matchup this weekend. But talking personnel, you've lost a lot of sort of power, class, experience, you could say, this year. You've lost RG Snyman to Leinster. Not that you really had him, you barely had him, did you? Joey
Yeah.
Carberry's gone to Bordeaux, Anton Frisch gone to Toulon, Simon Zebo's retired. So those are typically those players that brought you that go forward and the defensive strength as well. So who are some of the exciting young talents coming through to replace them? Who have you got your eye on?
Well, the first one I've got my eye on was actually the Ireland under 20s captain at the World Cup pass and at the Six Nations, Evan O'Connell. He's the nephew of the great Paul O'Connell.
Mm,
He The only reason he's not getting in the team at the moment is because he's with Emerging Ireland in South Africa. But he looks a seriously good talent, and he looks serious, and he's 6'7" or something. Obviously, he's got his uncle's genes. He looks a really dangerous player when given that shot. He's played a couple of minutes for Munster here or there when we've been ahead in games, and the game's kind of been won. But I would really love if he got a proper shot this year. We have a lot of injuries in the second row at the moment. Once he comes back, I hope he gets a shot. The other one, he's been talked up for a few years, Brian Gleeson, the number eight. He's dominated at under 20s level. He's played a good few times for Munster. He's looked really good when he's played for Munster. But again, he hasn't got a start. He hasn't got big minutes. He's injured at the moment, which is his issue. But when he comes back, I'd like to see what he can do.
Mm.
freshening up. He seems like someone that can break the line, that has a lot of skill, good over the ball, good on in the breakdown. So we have a couple of players kind of in that second row and back row. We have another guy, Sean Adolfo. He's gone down as well. He's dominated under 20s level. He looks really solid over the ball. He's massive. He's about 6'4" as a back rower. But we have a lot of that. But the problem with Munster is there's not a lot of talent coming through in the backs.
Hmm.
That's kind of where our issue lies. Obviously, we had a few years ago, we had a lot of them. We had Calvin Nash come through, and Shane Daly came through, and Craig Casey came through, Jack Crowley came through. There's 110, Dylan Hicks is being talked about a lot. He's a 19-year-old. I haven't seen much of him now, but he's been talked about in terms of the AIL as dominating the league already. So I'd be interested to see if he could come through and kind of push, Tony Butler, Billy Burns, and Jack
Yeah.
Crowley, if he can kind of make a step on. But definitely those three in the front, in the forwards, and Evan O'Connell, Brian Gleeson, and Sean Adolfo seem to be massive prospects for us if they can break through the season.
So what's the latest on Billy Burns? He signed a 1 year deal from Ulster this year. Played one game, injured. What's the nature of his injury? Is he going to be back soon, or is he out for a while?
Uh, it's difficult saying. Munster seems to be pretty secretive over their injuries a lot of the time. It looked a pretty nasty one. It was a shoulder injury anyway, I know that. I think the nature of it, the way he hobbled off and he was holding his shoulder, and there was absolute, like, he was struck off the day after the game in terms of playing against Zebre. Certainly
Mhm.
won't be back this weekend. Whether he'll be back before the autumn internationals, I don't know. I wouldn't count on it,
Was
but
was he
hope
always intended on being a stopgap, just covering Joey Carberry's absence, on a
I
short-term basis?
I think so. I think, like, obviously the coaches aren't going to say that, but I think that he was brought in for a year to kind of bridge that gap between, obviously, Carberry's gone, Ben Healy's gone, but kind
Hmm.
of advance Tony Butler and Dylan Hicks underneath him to kind of come through to where they can back up Jack Crowley. I think Butler showed a lot of inexperience on Saturday. He's got the raw talent there. He's got good kicking. I just think he needs a year to kind of show that he can manage an attack, and I think that's what Burns is there for. Now, it does feel unfortunate that we brought a guy in over Joey Carberry because Joey Carberry left because of his injuries, and he comes in, and in the first game he's injured again.
Yeah.
But hopefully he can come back and at least fill up for a year for Munster and sort of progress the two guys underneath him.
Yeah, yeah. There's another couple of names that I want to throw at you. Thomas Arhen, he's a name that's a bit more familiar to us. He's by no means new on the scene. And at six
Yeah.
foot nine and 18 stones, he's got to be part of the plan going forward, especially now that RG is gone. Um, yeah, what's your thoughts on him? Looking into doing a bit of research ahead of this podcast, I found out that at under 20s level, he played fullback and didn't quite have the pace, but it shows in his ball skills, his handling skills
Yeah.
that's where he started. I think he's something really exciting. You got strong opinions?
Yeah, he was touted as a fullback for years in his underage career, but once Munster got a hold of him, they said, no, he's a second one. I have a lot of time for Thomas Ahern. I think it showed last season, especially that game away in Toulon, a famous win, where they had him out in the wing because he's quick enough to play out on the wing at his size and his height and his build. And he just blew past Dan Bigger and scored a wonderful try. He scored a lot of them. He scored one against Exeter. Jack Crowley and Billy Burns are two tens known for their kind of crossfield kicks and short range kicking. They can get the ball out to a Hearn in space. He's beating any winger in terms of
Mm,
size. A lot of wingers are going to struggle to tackle Thomas Hearn.
mm.
He's going to be back soon. He broke his arm against Ulster in the final regular game of last season. He's still recovering from that, but he should be back soon enough. He was being touted about going down to South Africa with the Ireland team for the injury. Lots of high ratings for him. I think he's different to most of our second rows, but he's very physical, and
Mm.
he's just, as I said, his pace is incredible for someone his height and his size.
It's
Yeah, I think
crazy.
he's someone now that I think will be in the Ireland squad in 3 or 4 years' time, and I think he's someone that can really make a difference for Munster if he can come back fully fit.
Yeah, his power was incredible. I think his background pre-rugby was in athletics, where he did 400 and 600 meter. So he hasn't got that,
Yeah.
that acceleration, but his top speed is decent, and he's got the power behind it. But on the opposite end of the sort of player size scale, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation now, but Takir Abrahams, sorry, new
Akira
signing this.
Abrams, yeah.
Takir Abrahams, new signing this year, and looking into the articles pre-season that were getting written, Graham Roundtree had been singing his praises. He's obviously come over from Lyon. What's your assessment in the first two games? Has he satisfied? Has he played well?
Yeah, well, he went off early against Zebre. He went off after about 30 minutes with a little bit of a knock, so hopefully he'll be back for Friday. They haven't released it yet. Obviously, they haven't scanned him or whatever yet.
Hmm.
He impressed me against Connacht. He broke the line twice. He made two separate line breaks, and he got an assist for a try. He looks, well. First of all, he's bloody rapid. Like
Yeah.
he's in the kind of South African Colby, Aaron
Hmm.
that is sort of short, quick steppers, can beat anyone type
Yeah.
mold. But he does. He has impressed me. He did. I can't really rate his Zebra game because he didn't play enough of it for me. But his Connacht game was really impressive. I watched him. He was at Sharks 2 years ago. Looked really impressive for them. He's one of those people who can you can get the ball. He could beat 4 or 5 defenders and score. He's a very he's a good signing. He's very he gets people going. That's what they want after Zebo's gone. Of course, Zebo, a cult hero, a legend of Munster. They want somebody that the crowd will get going as soon as he gets the ball. You know, something
Yeah.
can happen here. Like he can dazzle past 4 or 5 people. So I think that's why they've one of the reasons that they've signed him, and I think he definitely has all the raw materials to show it. And I think against Connacht, he showed a lot of what he can do.
Yeah, yeah. Growing up watching Shane Williams, I just love a small winger. There's just something about it, isn't it? When you see them
Yeah,
dance around players twice their size, and they always seem to have really good just standing jumps on them, so they can just sort of spring with real light feet into action, hopping over players. And if you've got, I don't know, a Thomas Ahern coming up against an Abrahams, then the taller player's got to get down so low to hit that smaller player that
yeah.
either they're gonna misjudge it, they're gonna put a high one in, or they're just gonna miss it entirely. So yeah, I think he's got a lot of promise. I'm excited to see where he goes. So just a final one from me before I sort of open it up to my co-hosts again. I think you're there or about this season. You're going to be you'll come right towards the latter end, and you're going to be in contention. But from a Munster fan perspective, what would you consider a successful season?
Well, I think in the URC for it to be successful, we need to finish in the top four. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of unassailable with getting a home quarter final at the very least. I think it's very manageable. We have the Bulls and the Stormers at home. No, sorry, not the Bulls and the Stormers, but we have the Bulls at home this season, which I think is a massive plus. We don't have to go and play at altitude. That won't take as much out of us. And obviously, it's the cursing and the blessing of us having the three Irish provinces, of course, home
Mm.
and away, because in one end that you have them at home, but the other side is that, the Irish provinces, you're talking four of the best teams in the league there, and you play them twice. But I think we need to finish in the top four in the URC, at least get to a semi-final in the sort of playoffs for it to be a successful season in the league term point of view. In terms of Europe, it needs, at the very least, let's say a quarter final. We've got knocked out of the round of 16 in the last 2 years. They need to go further than that. They have winnable games. I know they have to go away to Franklin's Gardens in Northampton. I could accept if they lost that game because Northampton are incredible. But the other three games they have in Europe, they're playing two French sides in Stade and Castres who are known for putting out weak sides in Europe, and they're playing a Saracen side in transition. They need to win those three. They need to get at least a home round of 16 game and a quarter final at least in Europe to restore a bit of pride, get the crowds back in for those games, and get to kind of feel around Europe in the province good. I think those are my minimums. Obviously, I'd love if we won the URC again. I think Europe's out of reach for me, at least for another 2 years.
Mm.
But the URC is winnable. I think they need at least to get a semi and hopefully don't get beaten by Leinster, because the amount of times I've watched us lose to Leinster in semi-finals in whatever variant of the URC you want to talk of is ridiculous. But yeah, they would need to kind of build on last season, kind of maintain last season where they finished and slightly progress in Europe and kind of try and maintain that URC standard that they had towards the end of last season.
Yeah, I'm calling it now. It's going to be a Munster Leinster final in the ORC, and Snyman's going to score the winning try.
I'll get sick. I'll vomit up in the stands if that happens.
Right, yeah, that was fantastic, Dara. Really great to get your insight. Guys, have you got any questions for Dara about the game on the weekend? And then we can come back and do predictions at the end.
Can I just move to off-field matters just very, very quickly?
Yeah.
We've heard a couple of weeks ago chat around sort of a potential British and Irish league. Um, do Munster and the Irish teams need that? Or are you happy with the current structure that you're sort of competing within?
Well, I might be a bit different to most people because I'm really against it because of the way when I was growing up, I saw how the English Premiership treated the Celtic League and the Pro 12s and the kind of laughing stock they kind of used to describe us as, and they used to be, flashing their Heineken cups at us. I don't think we need it financially. Munster, especially, kind of, it was the first season in a long time that we got a surplus actually last season. We did because we had concerts at Thomond Park and we had events throughout the season when it wasn't being used. I think the one Irish province that wouldn't mind it is Ulster. Ulster, I don't know if you've heard, are really struggling in terms of finances. I think the other three are fine. Obviously, Connacht are building onto their stadium at the moment. Leinster, they're backed by lots of Irish, rich Irish people. They'll be fine. I think Munster are quite fine at the moment. But uh, of course, I think it would be good at start. But it's like the URC. There'll still be teams struggling. The English sides aren't all of a sudden going to come out of it, and all of a sudden, the seven clubs that are in a horrible budget deficit at the moment aren't going to all of a sudden be rich.
No.
Because it might happen for a season. There might be a great season or two where the fans of the likes of Leicester are going to want to play Munster. Obviously, the rivalry and Saracens and Leinster have had battles. But once that dies out, all of a sudden you're going to be back to square one. You're still going to have all the English clubs struggling. You might still have some of the Welsh clubs struggling, and then the Scottish and Irish clubs who are doing really well financially might all of a sudden start to tank as well. So I think from an Irish perspective, I don't think a British and Irish league would be beneficial to us.
Yeah, I mean we've said in previous episodes it does feel like you said the English clubs are coming cap in hand to us now that they're struggling for the first time ever probably, and they need us more than we need them potentially.
Yeah, as I said, they spent years looking down on the Celtic League, and then they were laughing at us once we took in the Italian teams in 2011-12,
Yeah,
and sort of saying the Celtic League is getting desperate that they're bringing in Italian sides. But as soon as it becomes a success, as you said, they're walking cap in hand
yeah,
towards us and kind of begging for our help. I don't agree with it. Or whatever, I'd say whatever about South African sides for a minute, because South Africa is such a catch that they'll be fine nearly because they just go back to Super Rugby. The Italian teams,
yeah,
obviously we got beat by Zebre. I don't want to stick up for them after Saturday, but Zebre are making progress. You don't beat Munster if you're useless. Benetton finished seventh last season. They're in the Heineken Cup this year. They nearly beat the Bulls down in Pretoria. Are you going to throw Italy 25 years of progress in Italy and they're winning games in the Six Nations now and they've battered Japan in the tour as well? Are you going to throw that out the window? Because if there's no grassroots in Italy, if there's no club size in Italy, you have nothing,
no,
which has been the problem for Georgia. Georgia haven't been able to take that step up because they haven't been playing top tier opposition in a club level. So no, that's my main battering stick with it is I couldn't stand to see Italy just being thrown off to the side because they're not a flashy new toy.
yeah, fair enough.
I agree. And I think I said a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, that at the moment they need us more than we need them. And I think the report that came out over the weekend showing just how financially dire some of the clubs are proves that. Yeah, okay, we made a 2 million loss last year, but that's a drop in the ocean compared to some of the Premier clubs. Quinn's obviously doing the best out of all of them, but I think I think you're right. We don't need them at the moment. And as much as I love an Anglo-Welsh derby, then we are creating new derbies. We are creating new rivalries, and it can only be better. Can I just say, Darragh, you've made me feel really old because I was also 3 when I went to my first rugby game. However, that does actually mean I have now been watching rugby for 44 years. Oh my God. I'm technically old enough to be your mum. But, that's good.
Yeah.
I think we'll all agree, guys, Darragh's been a fantastic guest.
Yeah, super.
Darragh, for someone so young, you are so mature and so eloquent. I would like to extend an invitation to you. Uh, we'd like to do some Six Nations specials next year, which the guys didn't know about, but they know about now. And I'd love you to come back and have a chat with us, and be
Yeah.
part of our Six Nations things next year.
That'll be good.
Yeah, I
And
would love it. You've all been
amazing.
very respectful to me, and I have enjoyed. Even though, as I said, I was nearly getting sick on the floor on Saturday talking about Munster. I'm able to talk about them now, and yeah, I've appreciated, the questions and just being able to talk with you guys. I've really appreciated the opportunity. I'd like to thank you all.
Oh, Darragh, you are a really nice, knowledgeable young man. Your mum must be really proud of you. And I am sounding old now, but we'd love to have you back because you've had some really well thought about, informed opinions. It is quite clear that you are a rugby nut. Please continue in that vein. And yeah, come back to us. And can I just say, Island ladies, really good. Beat the All Blacks. I'm really happy
Yeah,
about
I saw
that.
that. I watched some of that yesterday. It's a massive scalp to beat the world champions. Ireland are
Amazing.
now we're the only side to have a winning percentage against the Black Ferns, I believe, which is
Yeah.
incredible. Our ladies really made Ireland proud yesterday. They really
Absolutely
did.
phenomenal. Really, really good game to watch. But thank you very much. Please come back for the Six Nations. We're all following each other on Twitter now, so we can message back and forth. And please send us your comments after the weekend. You're so
Yeah.
nice. I want your team to win, but that then means that we'd lose. So let's just hope for
Well,
a really good game.
on that note, we need predictions.
We do, yeah.
Hmm.
So
Who wants to kick things off?
let's write this down so we can revisit it next week, shall we?
Okay.
So, Darragh,
Okay.
what's your scoreline going to be?
I'm going to make enemies out of all of you now.
No,
I think Munster will bounce back. We have our Ireland international back, and I think there has to be a reaction. There's a lot of anger over that game on Saturday. I think it'd be incredibly close. I watched the Ospreys on Saturday, and parts of that game, I was sitting there nearly mouth open. I was that impressed with the Ospreys against a really good Stormers side, but I think Munster will just have enough to drag ourselves and kind of bring ourselves back and sort of put a bit of positivity around the province before we go away to Leinster to play in Croke Park. I think Munster will win by 3. I think 3. Munster will win by 3.
Close margin then.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it'll be really, really close, especially with Ospreys having, their full strength side out.
The
Be
difficulty
really
from our perspective is that, yeah, obviously you're going to have a whole suite of players coming back in this week. So any sort of points to identify where we could get some inroads for the coming weekend, they're probably not going to be there anymore because of the change of personnel.
yeah,
So, we could look at that Zebre game and go, right, we just need to replicate what they did there and, front up in the
we can.
pack and try and
Yeah,
outmuscle you. But I don't think it's going to be a similar picture.
no,
So we've got to just stay true to ourselves, really, and just do what we're good at, which is just being really niggly and
yeah.
disrupting your opportunities. And then hopefully we create our own opportunities off the back of that. Um, I'm just waffling because I haven't got a prediction in my head. Um, you did a margin, so I'll do a margin. I'm going to say Ospreys by, I'm going to go by 6.
oh, I was going to go for 5.
At least we get a losing bonus point this time. It's better than Saturday. We'll take that.
I think it's going
Right.
to be difficult. I mean, there's going to be changes on both sides on this Saturday. Like again, you're going to have your big guns coming back Toby Booth's already started talking rotation in terms of the Ospreys potentially in the weekend as well, so we may be resting a few. Um, Munster are going to be a dangerous animal, I think, on Saturday night after the result last weekend. You're going to want to bounce back big time from that. So I'm going to have to go for a Munster win. I think we'll stay within bonus point range just about. I think I'll go Munster by 5.
Oh, so I've got Marc and Darragh going for Munster. Darragh with 3 and Marc by 5. And Rod and Sam going for an Ospreys win, with Rod with a margin of 5 and Sam with a margin of 6. I will arrange a prize for whoever's nearer.
Is that prize a pen by any chance?
No, it'll be better. Listen, it will be better than that. I don't know what it'll be yet, but it will be a prize. Ye of little faith. But Darragh, thank you so much for joining us. That invitation is more than extended. Anytime you want to come on, give us a shout. We'd be more than happy to have you back.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks very
Good to
much
have
for having
Thank
me.
you. Take care, Darragh. Bye,
Thank
lovely.
you.
Oh,
Bye. What a nice young man.
yeah.
Absolutely.
How proud must his man be? Because he's so knowledgeable.
You did blush a bit when you said that.
Yeah, but you know, I'm probably older than his mum, let's face it. But yeah, what a nice young lad.
Yeah,
And
good chat. Good chat. You're so knowledgeable. So
yeah,
knowledgeable.
I was not like that at 18.
No.
I feel proud of him, and I've only just met him tonight.
I
So
know, don't you just feel like, what a nice kid? But anyway, let's go back. Let's go back to Saturday night when we played the Stormers. And I know we were all a bit nervy last week, weren't we? About going into this off the back of letting that game against the Dragons slip away. But I don't know about you guys. Rod, I know you were watching the pub. Marc, you were at home. I was in Brewery Field. It felt special. It felt like it was a coming together.
Can I
And
just
it
say before we start, I think a good compromise for all those people who wanted us to move to the Brewery Field for next season, I reckon we tear up that turf and move that to St. Helens, so we got the best of both worlds. Because I don't think we could lose on the Brewery Field turf.
well, we played there 16 times, and when we and our winning margin is pretty good there. I did have that stat in my head earlier on, but it's gone. Let's face it, St. Helens pitch is just sand because of the way that the wind blows. But yeah, what did we think was good on Saturday night apart from the win?
it was a bit of a roller coaster, wasn't it? As you say, we were all nervy before the game, and I think the first 20 minutes we were right to be nervy, and we were still really nervy after the first 20 because we looked a little bit shell-shocked. We looked a bit off the pace, looked a bit surprised by the Stormers, how strong they looked. I was just watching it thinking all their players just looked bigger than ours and stronger than ours and faster than ours. And it was just a really strange first 20. And then as the half went on, the Stormers had missed a few chances, and we just sort of grew into the game. And you can see that belief growing within the team as that first half went on. And, you know, to go in 3 points down at half time, I think was a major boost for us. It could have been far, far worse at half time. But then second half, we were just superb. And okay, we had to make it traditionally nervy at the end, with those 19 phases or whatever it was that the Stormers went through just to put us through the ringer for the last 5 minutes or whatever it was. But then again, to show that resilience to go back up the field and to get that bonus point try at the end. So it was a real roller coaster, wasn't it? But just showed the spirit the team's got, you know, to get through a tricky first patch and then to recover the way we did and to go on and win the game well in the end with the bonus point. Can't do any more than that.
Those Stormers guys were massive.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge.
Mm.
You know, I'm 5'2", but they were something else, man, coming onto that pitch. Like funny enough, I was in blockage and prisoner cell blockage, as my brother referred to it as. But even sitting that far back away, they were imposing. They were really impressive. And
Yeah.
I know I send no, I didn't take a video of Ruben. In the lounge afterwards, Ruben came in and he was asked what it was like facing off against them, and he was like, scary.
Yeah.
That was his response, scary, intimidating. But I just thought that half-back pairing at 9 and 10 was just something else. That try with Dan Edwards was pure training play, wasn't it? But it came off, it worked, and it was lovely to see it live. We watched again on TV because there's loads of little different things that you miss when you're there, because there is a big screen in Brewery Field, but it's this side of the stand, so you can't, if you're sitting in this stand, you can't really see it. But you're right, Rod, a really niggly game, and we started to get some, and it did start to get a little bit heated in points. I thought it was going to pop off at one stage, and who doesn't love a bit of handbags? But the atmosphere was just cracking, and I think when we played rugby the way that we played it on Saturday night, it's going to draw people in. It is.
Yeah. The atmosphere there sounded intimidating. But no, I had the benefit, like Lance Bradley tweeted out saying when he watched it back, it's a lot easier when you know the result. So on the night, I was watching it on my phone whilst being distracted by other people. So I was just watching the scoreboard ticking over. So I wasn't that, invested in the moment. And then watching it back, I knew the final result. So I didn't get to feel the tension that you guys are talking about because I just knew that final scoreline. But God, what a performance, eh? I think if some of those Stormers opportunities came off or a few more of those opportunities came off in the first 20 minutes, could have been a completely different game and our heads could have dipped. But fortunately they didn't. Our defense was solid all game. They were throwing bodies at us and they were making ground, but by the time they got to the 22, we were forcing mistakes. And that was just a pattern that was repeated throughout the game. But there were some real standout performances that I want to highlight. Tipuric it was just a masterclass, not just in terms of his play-in, but in how he was managing the game. He was like a deputy captain, really, wasn't he? And Jack Morgan was doing all the diplomatic face-to-face stuff, whilst Tipuric was just playing the ref like a fiddle. There was one moment where there were hands on him in the ruck, and he, for lack of a better phrase, dives and it just falls backwards on his ass. And the ref saying, "Get up, get up," but he keeps playing it until the Stormers player gets impatient, reaches over, touches him, and forces the penalty. And it was just really intelligent rugby. It was obviously his kick through as well to the corner, phenomenal. He'll just keeps pulling those things out of the bag.
Talking of that penalty, the ref was blatantly telling the Stormers player, no.
Yeah.
No. And he couldn't help himself. He just went in. And you've got to love a Welsh.
He made it too easy for him.
You've got to love a Welsh crowd because someone shouted, "Didn't your mum ever tell you, son, no means no?" I was just crying by that point because there was some proper top-notch banter near where I was sitting. And you're right, the players that you've highlighted, I would say Phil, when he came on, throwing Watkin was, superb. Harry Deeves, just outstanding.
Yeah.
But I think
the thing about Harry Deeves is that he came on for 10 minutes for HIA and he made an impact there. Then he went back off and Jack Morgan came back on and Jack Morgan stepped it up a notch again.
Yeah.
And then when he leaves the pitch eventually for the final time, Deeves steps it up a second time, So it's just they kept outclassing each other.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think a word for our sort of front row replacements as well, because the scrum had struggled a little bit throughout. And when Warren and Phillips came on, the scrum looked a lot stronger.
Yeah,
The Stormers were throwing everything at us that last sort of 20 when they were on the pitch. And
yeah,
if
yeah,
anything, our scrum looks sort of stronger.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's positive. Thinking about the depth of our front row, which we'd be worried about. Somebody like Warren coming on just looked rock solid.
yeah, yeah. And then in those final throws of the game where we were getting hammered back on our own line, and James Ratty makes that pivotal turnover at the ruck.
Yeah.
If you look at who sort of sets that scenario up, it's Ben Warren, and
Yeah.
with one tackle, he takes out two people. He wraps both the legs of one player and one of another player, and takes them both down, and just
Mm.
sets Ratty up to make it what was an easy-ish turnover, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
Ratty took all the glory, but Ben Warren put the work in there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And sort of Dewi Lake as well playing the full 80 in that front row was a heroic performance by him.
Yeah.
yeah, phenomenal.
So, well, we're all happy bun buns. Bit nervy going into Munster again or
Mm.
giving our predictions. But Mark, I know that you are the man in the know with Mark's URC roundup. Few shocks amongst
Yeah.
there.
Really interesting weekend. I've managed to keep my streak going of watching all the games. It was a challenge this weekend because we're recording on a Monday. Lots of games to catch up on. I had to just let go of all social interaction all day on Sunday, pretty much. But I sacrificed myself for the pod and for our listeners to make sure we got a full
Here is the
review
hard
of.
life,
Oh,
innit?
it was tough. The sofa was getting so uncomfortable by the end of the day, but I did it for the fans, like we said. Yeah, really good games. Home is the place to be, just like me this weekend. 7 out of 8 home wins. Four comeback wins as well, so being behind wasn't necessarily a bad thing this weekend either. More lopsided score lines than we had on the first weekend. We had lots of close matches, more lopsided games, but plenty of entertainment. 57 tries, averaging out to 7 tries a match, and then we can all take that as the season goes on, definitely. So we'll rattle through the weekend. Starting on Friday night with Leinster against the Dragons, obviously, who'd vanquished us the previous week. And I think that the Dragons look a different proposition this year. They were, they were strong against Leinster. They put up a good battle. Leinster had to fight for everything that they got Friday night. Leinster relied on a couple of dubious um, video referee decisions, TMO decisions. When you're in Ireland, you expect those calls to go against you. And that's exactly what happened, really. But there was a couple of those calls which could have gone either way. And it was only really the last 20 that Leinster sort of pulled away, showed their class a little bit. But, the Dragons showed a lot of resilience. And, they'll be happy with their showing. Ominous signs from Leinster, really. They had a stronger team out than they did in the first game. But when they're back to full strength, they're going to be very, very difficult to beat. So a 34-6 final scoreline didn't really do credit to the battle that the sort of Dragons gave, really. I think it was a bit harsh on them, the final result, but there
And
we
that
go.
crowd is tough, isn't it, at the Aviva? God, the
Even with
numbers
just the
that they
lower
get there.
bowl filled, yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
even open to the full stands or whatever, just the lower bowl. And there was still 18,000 or whatever there,
Mm.
just that lower bowl. So, yeah, good showing by the Dragons, but Leinster are going to be tough to beat at home, certainly this year. Glasgow Benetton on Friday night. Glasgow 42, Benetton 10. Again, the score doesn't really tell the full story of that game. Um, Glasgow in the first half, a little bit like last week against Ulster, showed flashes of really, really good play, flashes of what won them the title last season. But again, left a lot of points out there. Really close at half time. And what turned the game in the end was the indiscipline of sort of Benetton's players. They had Scott Scrafton sent off on the stroke of half time for a high late shot on Adam Hastings. And that really turned the game, really. There were points in the second half where they were down to 12 men. And really Glasgow, put them really to the sword second half. Again, Glasgow still look a bit rusty. I don't know, obviously John's a big Glasgow fan. Sam, I don't know what he made of that performance. You'd think 42-10, Glasgow fans would be happy with that, but there were lots of points left out there. They're not as cohesive as they can be, certainly at the moment, and still a lot of work to do for them.
We had a laptop and a TV on the go. So I was watching the Dragons Leinster on the big TV, and John was watching Glasgow on the laptop, and he was not a happy bunny. He again, as you said, lots went begging. That could have been better, but it was ultimately the indiscipline of the other team
Yeah.
that did for them. But again, the ability to multitask, and yeah,
But maximum points for Glasgow, however you play, if you get maximum points, then that's job done, isn't it? Saturday lunchtime then, Lions 35, Ulster 22. Lions were in firm control really throughout the game. Really impressed, really high tempo attacking style from the Lions. Obviously, the conditions helped in how they play as well, but they were willing to run it from anywhere really on sort of Saturday lunchtime. Ulster just stayed in the game. They fed on the sort of mistakes that the Lions made. They say the Lions trying to run it sort of from everywhere. Ulster picking up loose balls and turnovers and things from there, and took chances when they were available to them, enough to get a bonus point for them for 4 tries. The Lions are going to be exciting to watch, I think, at home, certainly. Their winger, Maxwani, looks an absolute player. The commentator said at one point it looked as if everybody else was going in sort of slow motion when he had the ball in hand, because he can just beat somebody on a six punch really, and he's very, very rapid. I mean, they weren't afraid to mix it up a bit. The Lions as well. They got 2 tries from rolling walls as well. But ultimately, the Lions season will be decided on how they travel, really. So I think, at home they're going to be strong, but it's how they play away from home, and how they cope at home against the big sides as well. But they're going to be exciting to watch either way. Bulls and Edinburgh was a really strange game. Bulls 22, Edinburgh 16. It was a game the Bulls never really looked like losing, but Edinburgh were never quite out of the game either. They just couldn't shake them off, and the Bulls, similar to Glasgow really Friday, left a lot of points out there, lots of sort of mistakes from them. Again, a bit like Leinster, the worrying thing with the Bulls is they've got so many players to come back into that team when they're back to full strength, and they're firing on all cylinders. I think that's the time to judge the Bulls, when they've got their sort of Springboks back. I think for the time being, they're doing what they need to win games, but not entirely convincingly. Edinburgh be glad on the flip side to get Leinster and the Bulls over with in their first 2 matches. Couldn't have wished for a harder start really, and again, difficult to judge where Edinburgh are. However, having said that, they've pushed both teams close over those first 2 matches, and I think the next few games now will give us a fair indication of maybe where Edinburgh are going forward for the rest of the season. On to the shock of the weekend, Zebre Munster. First of all, are we saying Zebra, Zebra, Zebre? I've heard. I think within the one commentary on Saturday, we had about 4 different pronunciations of it. Even the commentators themselves couldn't stick to one pronunciation. It's like Dewi, Dowie, Dewey all over again. But
yeah,
we'll say Zebra for tonight. Yeah, the shock of the round could be argued one of the shocks of the entire history of the URC, really, especially considering how awful Zebre were against Cardiff in the first game, especially the first 40 minutes when they were dreadful. Okay, they fought back a little bit in the second half, but Cardiff was hitting back a little bit as well. So I don't think anybody would have seen this result coming. And like Darragh said earlier on, it wasn't a fluke. It was a fully deserved win for Zebre. They fronted up front. First of all, they took on the Munster pack. They kept on finding sort of little creases to attack down the side of the rucks and mauls and things. And once they got that dominance up front, they then had the confidence to throw the ball around as well. And, different to the Cardiff game where they were playing a very, very limited game plan, keeping everything very, very narrow. Certainly as the game went on, you could see the confidence flowing through the players, and they were really throwing the ball around and, score 6 tries against Munster. Okay, Munster didn't play well, but to score 6 tries against any Munster team anywhere is a fantastic achievement. And to get that win will give them a massive boost. And yeah, who knows? I think, will we see the Zebre that we saw against Cardiff that were dreadful, or will this now be the Zebre that we're going to see for the rest of the season? There's such a young team of mainly Italian qualified players. It's fantastic for Italian rugby to see a team perform like that, and hopefully they can remain competitive as the season goes on as well.
That's what was surprising about that fixture, was the amount of tries scored on Zebra's end.
Yeah.
Didn't anticipate that. If you had told me Zebra were going to win, you'd put a low score on that game, wouldn't you? And that it
Yeah.
would have just been like a dog fight. But no, they opened them up.
Yeah,
Really surprising.
and the Munster defensive structure, like you said, the best defensive team in the whole of the URC
Yeah.
last season, and their structures for whatever reason, I mean, there were lots of individual defensive mistakes
Mm.
made. Their props got schooled by their scrum half for 2 tries or whatever. Drifting out too far, not covering the space they had or whatever. Just basic mistakes really instead of goal line defending. But yeah, Munster looked at sixes and sevens defensively, which is a bit of a worry for them going forward. Hopefully, they still will be next Saturday or Friday night, sorry, when we play, or Saturday night, sorry, isn't it, when we play them as well.
Yeah.
A couple more games then over the weekend. So the big Welsh derby, Scarlets against Cardiff, um, burst into life with a rather comical opening. Cardiff went for a sneaky switcheroo with their first kick-off of the game, which ended up landing in Max Page's lap. And he ran the length of the field to score after 14 seconds. So not the start the Cardiff were looking for. And again, the first 25 minutes, Scarlets were well on top. They continued where they left off against Benetton last week. They looked decent. The pack looked decent. Scored another try to get further ahead. And it was Cardiff's turn to be at sort of sixes and sevens. And the Scarlets just fell apart from there. Cardiff upped things. They upped their game, dominated a bit up front, a little bit more. And again, as soon as they got that dominance up front, then started to spread the ball a little bit as well. Grady looked very dangerous. I mean, he played on the wing on Saturday for Cardiff. I don't know where he'll end up playing for Wales in the autumn, but he has to fit in that Wales team somewhere. Gatlin seems to play him at 12, but out on the wing on Saturday, he looked very, very dangerous, very, very strong throughout. Um, but the Scarlets capitulated, really. I mean, just across the field, their pack just stopped competing. Handling errors, just basic rugby, they've just lost their way completely. And, it's led to a lot of saltiness from Scarlets fans online. Twitter's been quite tasty between Scarlets and Cardiff fans over this weekend. Cardiff gloating and the Scarlets fans not sort of liking it particularly. Worrying signs for the Scarlets, I think. They threw away a win at Benetton
Yeah.
last weekend, which would have been a fantastic result for them. Threw away a good lead again this weekend. So, worrying times for them. We said, pre-season that Dwayne Peel could be under a bit of pressure. And I think, they need to find a win in the next couple of matches. Otherwise, that pressure is going to continue to grow on him.
Quick aside, Dan Edwards great better than Sam Costello? I think so.
This
Yes.
weekend, Costello had an absolute mare on Saturday,
Yeah.
not just with ball in hand, but off the kick-in tee as well. He left 8 points, I think, out there, very, very kickable points as well.
Yeah. But to credit the Scarlets, Johan Lloyd looked untouchable.
Yeah.
People couldn't stick a finger on him. He was for such a small guy, yeah, incredibly evasive. He was untouchable. Maybe he's their option going forward. Obviously he played 15, didn't he? But
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe he comes in to replace Costello at 10.
Maybe. I mean, Cardiff played a lot more expansive game this week than they did against Zebre. Still not as they were last season in terms of throwing the ball around quite that much. They had a good balance between domination in the forwards and then, once they had that, spreading it out to the backs as well. So, there's a better balance from Cardiff, I think, this week. And it may be that they go game to game in terms of what their game plan's going to be. That may be where they're going to go this season. And then a final game, another comeback win, Connacht against the Sharks. Connacht may well turn out to be one of the most exciting teams to watch this season. I've thoroughly enjoyed their first 2 games, the narrow defeat against Munster last week, and this one against the Sharks. Again, a game of two halves. The Sharks completely dominant in the first half, built up a 27-7 lead. Through a combination of strong forward plays, scored some nice tries, but also mammoth kicking by Jordan Hendrickse. I think, the rest of the URC are on watch now that if you give away a penalty to the Sharks anywhere within 60 metres of your posts, then that guy's likely to kick it because he had 2, I think, from within his own half, just to build on that Sharks lead. And a bit similar to the Scarlets, really. Second half, the Sharks just disappeared. Connacht sort of took over the game. Sharks sort of shrunk into their shell, couldn't do anything right. Ball wasn't sticking. And Connacht sort of took over the game. Good continuity in forwards and backs. They're a nice team to watch, Connacht. They've got good continuity across the park. Scored some really good tries to turn the game on its head. Again, like the other South African teams, the Sharks have got some real superstars to come back into that team still. So I think when they go home after this tour and they get the Springboks and things back again and the players they've got coming back in, that's probably the time to judge them. But Connacht, I think, could surprise a lot of people this season. I think all their games are going to be exciting, certainly based on the first couple of games we've seen this season. And they could be, one of the surprise teams that might sneak into the playoffs, possibly based on what I've seen so far. And
Arguably
then
the most
just
likable Irish team.
absolutely.
Maybe it's just because they play in green and it just fits, you know.
I just think it's just surprising. We've been so used to watching Connacht just play quite attritional rugby,
Yeah.
Yeah.
playing to the conditions over there, whatever, just, used to them, low scoring matches or whatever. And all of a sudden they've got this team that throw the ball around, they've got good continuity in their play and are nice to watch.
Yeah.
So it's just a nice sort of contrast to what we've seen from Connacht over the years, maybe.
Hmm.
I'm just then looking forward to next weekend. So my game to watch is Cardiff Glasgow on Friday night. Cardiff have got maximum points, second only to Leinster at the moment on either it's points difference or tried scored or whatever they separate the top two at the moment. But they've got 10 points from their first two games. Glasgow, as we said, are flattered to deceive a little bit the first 2 weeks. Glasgow are going to want to prove a point, I think, that they're back and that they are contenders to defend their title this
Mm.
year. And Cardiff have got a point to prove that these first two games are not a
Win a
flash in
fluke.
the pan. The Zebre game, everybody was expecting them to win. The Scarlets aren't going to be one of the strongest teams this season either. So this
Mm.
is the first really big test now for Cardiff against what will be a strong Glasgow team, I'm sure. And be interesting to see how they fare and what game plan they put out as well. Whether they go back to a more conservative kicking game like they did against Zebre or whether they have a bit more of a balance they did against the Scarlets on Saturday.
What's your game of the weekend are you looking forward to, Rod?
Oh, I haven't even looked that far ahead beyond just our
I
fixture,
love
really.
putting you off, but um,
I'll agree with Mark because that was a good answer.
to be honest, I agree with Mark. Obviously, we know and we've discussed and said that Ospreys Munster is going to be tasty, and we're all going to
Mhm.
look forward to that. And I'm sure we'll all be on Instagram and Twitter giving our thoughts and opinions as we're going through. And I know that we were going to talk about our squad to go out. However, that ties us quite in nicely to one of the questions that we've had from Andrew, who said after tough win on the weekend against the Stormers, do we think that we are going to? I know Toby said that he's going to make some changes, but do we think we will massively rotate the team, or will we keep those building blocks pretty much on the same kind of consistency of the same 15? Thoughts and opinions?
I think we'll keep some combinations there. I think the halfback combination
Yeah.
after the high of last weekend, I can't see how you can change the halfbacks really. They're going to be full of confidence
Oh
after that
yeah.
performance last Saturday. So I think they have to stay as they are. I think there's more likely to be changes in the forwards than in the backs, maybe. Expecting maybe one of the second row to get a rest, maybe, and
Mm.
maybe Sutton or somebody like that coming into the second row, possibly. Front row maybe as well. I mean, we talked about Ben Warren making an impact when he came on last weekend, whether they give him a start. Um, Phillips, maybe Evans. I don't know. There's a few possible combinations in that front row. The front row have had two big matches, where they've had to work hard and you know, I think the pack is maybe more likely where we'll see the changes rather than the
Mm.
backs, maybe.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'd be saying, if Toby hadn't alluded to the fact that there's going to be rotations, I think we'd probably pick the same team if we were just going on performance and strength, who could do a job out there. But yeah, that's clearly not going to be the case. So it might be tricky this week trying to predict what team Toby selects because I don't know where those changes are going to come. I agree with you, Mark, that halfback pairing has to stay the same. Dan Edwards was like a general on the weekend. A little stat that I saw on Twitter from Stuart Farmer. I think he's a Leicester Tigers fan, sorry. He shared that Dan Edwards against the Stormers, became just the third Ospreys player to get a try, convert his try, kick a penalty, and kick a drop goal in
Yeah.
one game. And the only other players who've done that, both did it twice, were James Hook and Dan Biggar. So yeah, he's showing his class there. He's got to stay in that commander role. Same goes for Ruben Morgan-Williams. Might see a change in the centre partnerships. I don't think any of our injured wings are going to be back to fitness. We might see the wing pairing stay the same. Might see Max Nagy come in for Jack Walsh at fullback just to mix it up a little bit. He does have his own qualities. I think he's probably better in the air, and has quite a nice running game. I think in the season before last, he made what the most meters. Sorry, the most 100-meter carries of anyone in the short half season that he did play. Sorry, last season that was. So yeah, we're going to see changes. Don't know where they're going to come. Do we want to try and pick a team?
I mean, one comment I've seen online this week as well from a couple of people is regarding the sort of back row balance.
Mm,
And it's impossible. I mean, to be fair, the people that made this point also couldn't decide who they'd actually drop from that back row either.
mm,
Because, like you said, Tipuric was superb. Jack Morgan's captain. Morgan Morris is Morgan Morris.
mm.
But a few people quite liking the thought of maybe playing Ratty at 6, give us a bit more bulk at 6 potentially. I don't know against Munster though, because we're going to need to get quick ball against Munster, and I would be tempted to keep it as it is. But I can see where they're coming from in terms of when we're playing South African teams or the bigger sides, maybe to have a bigger 6, maybe an option going forward, but maybe not for this weekend.
So what would you do? Bring Sutton in
Brings
and
Sutton
shift
into the
Ratty?
second row, maybe and shift Ratty. I don't think for Saturday necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised if Beard or Ratty get a rest this weekend anyway.
Yeah. I don't really want to make a selection because I'm pretty much sometimes of the school of thought that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But then I know bodies on the line need a bit of a rest. And I'm kind of in balance really. But mentioning Ratty, that brings us on to a question that we've had from James Rees. Thanks for your question, James. Really appreciate it and the support that you've shown the pod. James Ratty, is he Wales's most underrated player?
I think we've probably got 3 or 4 of Wales's most underrated players just within our squad. So
Could put
most
any
rated,
number of names in there.
yeah, most underrated. I'm not sure, but definitely underrated, without a doubt.
Yeah,
You can put him on the list with Morgan Morris, with Harry Deeves, with Ruben Morgan-Williams.
yeah,
Yeah, there's plenty of names that you can put on that list.
yeah,
Yeah, he could do a job certainly, couldn't he? When he at lock or at 6, I think the sort of the fact that he can play in both positions, gives him an extra boost to get into the Wales squad potentially. As sort of a bench player to cover 2 sort of positions as well. I think he's one of the first names on our team sheet currently, isn't he? Really?
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I think what we should do is have a little bit of, because I'm still thinking about my 23, if I'm being honest. And I could, if I wanted to, pin my flag to the pole, but I kind of don't want to. I want to think about it a bit more.
Okay.
So shall we have another 24 hours and then put our squad up on Instagram and Twitter? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I could make a decision now, but I know in 10 minutes time I'll want to change my mind. Typical woman, if I'm being honest. And I can say that because I'm a woman. You two couldn't get away with that.
And the thing Sam isn't saying is that she's a strict mistress who's trying to keep us to time, and that would take us another 20
and we've
minutes.
gone massively over. But I think we'll all agree that a large chunk of our time was spent speaking to Darragh, and I am now a fully paid up member of the Darragh fan club, so it's all good.
Absolutely.
And 2 of the other questions really that we've had are, and I suppose we can tie them in a bit really. From Edward, who's messaged me on Instagram. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely speaking to you on Instagram this week. And then a question from Jake Keneally, which is how confident that we can go and win in Munster, and do we think, and from Edward then, have we got the consistency to follow up a win with a win? And that's quite tricky, going from Stormers to Munster away.
Mm.
For me, am I confident that we can go to Munster and win? Yeah, I am. Because I think we'll have the confidence. And I think the quote from Toby this week about being a great team and being resilient kind of summed it up, really, for me, with regards to just going and performing and taking that on the chin. And I'm just going to pull that quote up because I really liked it. The sign of a good team is they learn quickly. All week we bounce back. We prepared really well and we challenge each other, which is fantastic. That's how winning gets done. So for me, yeah, I'm confident we can go to Munster. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. But the thing that did leave us down last year was consistency. URC, shocking. European Cup, fantastic. It was like night and day between the two. So what do you two feel about
Well,
that?
this bunch of players have gone out there last year and lost in a quarter final. So they've had that experience. They'll have learned from that. And yeah, I'm confident that we can go out there and do a job. The boys have got heart, and that's the extra sort of 5-10% that you need to win these big fixtures. So yeah, I reckon we can do a job. Won't be easy, but yeah, I've got
Nothing
faith
worth
in our
having
boys.
ever is.
No, exactly.
And I've
But
already gone against you two because I predicted Munster to win by 5. Sorry, so I'm going to be pessimistic on this one. I think it'll be a tough game. I think Munster. I think if Munster had beaten Zebre comfortably last weekend, I'd be a bit more confident maybe. But they're a wounded animal, and they're going to be really up for it this weekend. So I think, yeah, I think we will compete, but I don't think we'll win.
hmm
And I think over the season as well, in terms of consistency, I think a lot of it depends on injuries for us.
mm,
We haven't got the squad depth to compete with the Leinsters, the Munsters, the Stormers, the Bulls over a whole season, unless we've got our first team squad fit week in, week out. As soon as we pick up 3 or 4 injuries, then, the depth in the squad starts getting a bit thin. And then we start struggling, and that's when you get the results like Leinster away last season, and, we get sort of
yeah,
60 points put on us or whatever. So a lot of it's down to fitness, and that's just luck at the end of the day, isn't it? So
yeah.
yeah.
So that's all for our questions. And we are getting loads of people are getting in contact and, having discussions online and sending us questions. And that's what we love. That's the point of our podcast. That's why it's called a fan cast, because we are fans. We love chatting with other fans. We love discussing things, rugby with local fans, with fans from the other regions, you know, and we love that interaction. Please keep it up on like Twitter, Instagram, and everything else. Like we said at the start, moving forward, it's just going to be us three. Moving forward as your hosts, we're looking to bring guests on. Look at your little face, Rod. I'm old enough to be your mum as well. Um, it's something we really enjoy doing. When we talk a lot behind the scenes, and we are making strong bonds between all three of us. And it is a pleasure doing this with you every week, guys. I have to be honest. Love the random conversations that we have and everything else. So moving forward, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the pod is out for you every Wednesday, so that you've got 2 or 3 days before the match on the weekend to come together. Obviously, having spoken to Kirby and Darren, we've come up with these ideas about the internationals and everything else, because I think there's so much that we can talk about. And if I can just say, Mark, I'm loving the black. You're reminding
hmm
me of the milk tray man.
I eat enough milk tray, but yeah, you can't see that
Nothing
bit.
wrong. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a chunker as well. It's all right. But absolutely love doing this. It's a really lovely journey with you guys.
Yeah.
hmm
And I think we should share with the listeners that when I was in the Nest clubhouse on Saturday, and managed to speak to some great people from the club, Scott Ott and Richard Lancaster, and I'm going to contact them this week. So keep your eyes peeled because you never know. We'll have some people coming on. So I'm in communication, and the feedback that we've had from the club is that they really like the podcast. And we really love doing it. But I think we should have a Sam random question of the week because we've not really talked nonsense this week, have we?
I'm worried now.
This is going to be so left field.
It's not. Why would you say that about me? I totally know why. And I was thinking, as I was getting ready for this, I love Virgin anthems. I'm a bit of an oldie at heart when it comes to music. And they played David Bowie followed by Fleetwood Mac. And the big regrets in my life are that I didn't get to see them live. Now I go to loads of concerts, loads of shows, and I've seen pretty much everybody that I want to see. So if there is anybody that you were really gutted about that you've not seen, just so the people out there can get to know us a bit. Like for me, I'd have loved to see Fleetwood Mac and I'd have loved to see Bowie because I think the world went to shit once Bowie died. Like he was holding the universe together and then he went and it all went P-tong. So they're who I'd like to see. So who would you two like to see?
Mine's fairly straightforward. Queen for me. I was a massive Queen fan growing up. My cousin went to Wembley to see them, and I was too young to go. I got stopped off from going. I think I probably would have been 9 maybe at the time or 10.
Oh.
She was 12, 13, so she was allowed to go. In Excess supported them that day as well. Status Quo supported them that day as well. It was a proper old school lineup. Yeah, Queen for me. I would have loved to have seen Freddie. Queen now is not Queen to me.
No.
Without Freddie, they're not the same.
Adam Lambert's great, but it's not Queen.
And I wouldn't go and see them now. But I would love to have seen Queen in their pomp in the 80s, late 70s, 80s.
Good choice.
Those are all cracking answers. Yeah, I could have said any of those. But I'll go with AC/DC. I was raised on AC/DC. Would have loved to seen them, in their pomp. I think they were going until a couple of years ago, but not with the same kind of energy in some of their old videos.
Oh, I think Angus is. He's still got it, isn't he? I think, yeah.
He has, to be fair.
Still in his
hasn't
school
he?
uniform.
Are they still touring though?
They've played dates this year.
They do, yeah.
Have they? Okay.
Yeah.
But I could easily have said Meat Loaf, again, another band that was just always on growing up. Particularly just to hear Bat of Hell, the full 9-minute version. But I'll pick one more current one as well, just because it was probably the celebrity death or the musician death that rocked me the most growing up, and that was Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. And they've now reformed with a new lead vocalist, female lead vocalist, and I think she's great. And she's got that sound, slightly different pitch or tone or whatever, but she's got that Chester Bennington sort of sound and her scream.
Yeah.
So modern one, Linkin Park, old school one, AC/DC.
Amazing. Well, talking of AC/DC, they did actually play Thunderstruck on Saturday during half time.
That really gets me going.
To be honest with you, it only gets me going because of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it is insane. And I thought about popping the moves out because I could technically do it apart from the leg flick and the split. But I thought best not. But if you haven't seen that documentary, please watch it because it's absolutely insane what they do to their bodies. Hip replacements are 24, man. What? Like, get a grip. And the top tip from Sam, talking of Bat Out of Hell. I don't know if you have seen it, but the Bat Out of Hell musical is the most bonkers musical I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen most of them. It's coming to Cardiff. I have never gone to a musical and sat there so open-mouthed in my life and not known what was going on. Bear in mind, it's people walking about their daily life, just bursting into song, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. But Bat Out of Hell, I went to see it with my best friend, and they do Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and the woman who's playing the mum strips down to her underwear. And the only thing I could think of to say to my best friend, because they did it amazingly, I was like, that underwear's from Playful Promises. And he looked at me and he was like, how do you know? I was like, I got it on. And I literally had the underwear on. And he was like, what? And I was like, I got it on. And he was like, oh my God, you got the underwear on. But if you get the chance to go and see it, it
Oh, I
is
might do. That
those.
sounds really good. I might
It
do that.
is
I might
good.
drag Amy along. Yeah.
Oh,
I've
do
got a
it, do
really
it.
weird association with Meat Loaf because I used to listen to the album on repeat on my CD player whilst reading a book called The Wishing Chair Collection growing up,
Oh yeah.
which is this magical chair that these group of siblings sit on and it whisks them away to a magical world.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
fantastic.
whenever I hear a couple of songs from that album, it takes me back into this strange world that I vaguely remember. It's such a odd, just like auditory sort of association that I have.
For
Yeah.
me, it's Bruno Mars with the Game of Thrones, first Game of Thrones book, because I used to commute back and forth to Cardiff. So I used to like be reading my book at 7 o'clock in the morning. And because I can't stand people, um, I'll clarify that I can't stand people first thing in the morning. Don't speak to me before 9. I'd always have earphones in, and it was the point where Bruno Mars was absolutely massive song with the lazy song, and I was listening to that on my iPod. But please, if you go and see Bat Out of Hell, I'm super excited. I've got tickets to go and see the Rocky Horror with Jason Donovan,
Oh, brilliant.
and I can't wait because I saw him last time he played Frankenfurter. Um, and I just need to get everybody else to dress up now. But
I've been to Rocky Horror twice, and the first time when I was in college, we went to the body shop Carmarthen to have our makeup done beforehand,
did you?
and went in full Frankenfurter. Yeah,
I love it.
body shop Carmarthen on a sort of Saturday afternoon. Can we have a makeover, please? And they did it as well, to be fair.
Yeah, I got like I'm gonna go as one of the party people because I got like a black suit tie and whatever. I can go with the party hat and stuff on. But I'm really looking forward to that. But I know it's been slightly longer this week, guys, and I know I'm normally an absolute stickler for time, but I think you'll agree we've had a lot to talk about this week. We've had a fantastic guest, some cracking games to talk about, and I know we're all looking forward to the week ahead. So this is us signing off. Your three amigos. I could do the dance from the film, but I'm not going to because we leave that for TikTok. Um, yeah. But we've had a fantastic chat again, guys. Please keep up with us on the socials, keep asking questions, please keep in contact. All our socials will be on the bottom of the banner. We'll all be sharing and retweeting. And keep an eye out because we're going to do some bios on all of us over the next week or so, just so that you can get to know us a little bit better other than Sam's randos at the end. So have a good week, everyone. May the odds be ever in our favour against Munster, apart from Marc, who's gone against Grain, but we'll forgive him for that. And have a good week. Bye, guys.
Bye.